Jay here for Stretford Paddock. That's Joe Smith, and this is Paddock Live. Why have you got a smirk on your face?
I was nearly going to sneeze then, but I decided to not put it on.
Not put it on?
I decided to put it off.
Put it off. Yeah. Yes, that's the professionalism you get at Stretford Paddock. What we're going to be talking about tonight is Sheikh Jassim. Yeah, for the purposes of this, we've put Qatar's Confidence.
Yeah.
Because he's from Qatar.
Yeah.
We're talking about him. He's confident that he will be the new owner of Manchester United, regardless of the stories doing the rounds that a minority stake could be on the horizon for the Glazers. Victor Osimhen, Jeremie Frimpong, their potential incomings. Also, Rashford, Shaw, someone else, Sabitzer.
There you go.
Back in training. We're going to be
Raya.
David Raya, yes. We're going to be getting to him as a potential incoming as well. The Jimmy Murphy statue, long overdue, but that's going to be unveiled. I'm looking forward to that because I've been saying for a long time, as we all have, if anyone deserves a statue at Old Trafford, it is Jimmy Murphy. So we'll get into all that. And we'll also have Adam McCullough on Last Man Standing with some rival losers.
What a show.
What a show. Eh? What a fantastic show.
Like Top of the Pops.
The most important thing, though, to be all popular.
You remember the presenter of Top of the Pops? What was his name?
Jimmy Savile. Cheeky. Get well out of order. I look nothing like him. He had long hair. Anyway, get involved in the chat in the comments. That's what I was going to say before you derailed me. Make sure you are hitting that like button as well, because this is all about you guys, of course. Should we start with Qatar Confidence?
Is that similar to Dutch Courage?
Yes, it is.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay, then I've heard of this before. Jamie Jackson.
Talk us through that absolute essay.
Jamie Jackson of The Guardian fame.
Friend of the channel.
Says Sheikh Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani remains confident he will succeed. Sheikh Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani remains confident he will succeed. Already said that, but that's part of the next line as well. That he will succeed with his bid to buy Manchester United after it emerged that Carlyle Group, a US investment firm, wants a minority stake, and the Glazers have instructed Rain, the bank handling any sale, to examine the offer.
Are you okay? Have you got windy pops?
Shut up.
Do you know why that is? Because of this.
No.
This.
No.
Got my close up. Look.
Chocolate.
Look at that. Hey.
I'm like fucking.
Look at what he's been doing.
Augustus Gloop in here. Someone brought in a box of miniature heroes for Ethan's birthday.
Oh, and you've had some more.
Really miniatures.
Right, go on.
Cut back to that, and don't. If you ever do that again, Callum, you'll be out of this door faster than I can say whisper.
You won't.
Cut to it now. Full screen. Sir Jim Radcliffe, one of Britain's richest people, wants to buy a controlling interest, but has said he would borrow as part of any deal. Thoughts? I
worry that we're getting into sort of. I like Jamie. He's a friend. He's been on the channel loads of times. I've probably done more videos with James Jackson than any other journalist. Yeah. But I worry we're getting into sort of some journalists seem to be. I don't know if he's propaganda, because it sounds a bit extreme, but backing one bidder and sort of putting out the lines about the positive aspects of one bidder, and then other journalists being a bit more pro other bidders. And the main two camps are Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sheikh Jassim. Now, if you're reading this, it's like, well, Sheikh Jassim looks like a much better option than Sir Jim Ratcliffe, because he's saying, he wants to buy controlling interest, but as said, he would borrow as part of any deal. It sounds a bit negative, doesn't it? But we'll have to wait and see. I said all along, I think that Sheikh Jassim is going to be the new owner. I think the Glazers will sell, and I think that he has access to more money than Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Sir Jim Ratcliffe obviously is Britain's richest man, or one of Britain's richest people, as you've said, but he doesn't have access to the almost unlimited funds that we think Sheikh Jassim does, because despite what is being said, that he's just an independent investor with his own money and he's private, a privately wealthy person, which I've got no qualms about. It does feel like, his dad was the prime minister. He is part of that ruling. The family has, a ruling interest, shall we say, in Qatar. And you do think he would have access to the Qatari investment fund, or whatever it's called, which is hundreds of billions of pounds.
It's obviously isn't it?
I'm trying to be a little bit more objective, but it does seem that way, and I think you'd have to be beyond naive not to believe that. I will say this one thing while we're talking about ownership and the Glazers and all this other stuff, because it was coming out, like you said, Joe, about the minority investment or the minority stake with the Carlyle Group. It's upset a lot of people and angered a lot of people, and the protests and the anger towards Glazers hasn't gone away. Now, I think there's more process. Well, I know there's more process planned for the 30th of April. That's the Villa game at home, where everyone's going to make as everyone's been encouraged to make their views about the Glazers known, and how the fans, or most of the fans as well, pretty every fan I spoke to, wants full sale only, not this minority stake that sees the Glazers stay on. So there is going to be a process. I think there's the 1958 group are behind that. If you go on their Twitter, you can get the details of that. I think they'll be updating that. If it's not updated already with the full plans of that, they will be coming over the next few days. So go and check those guys out, because they've been sort of behind the latest process. And I do expect a lot of people to be down there protesting, because this has upset a lot of people, the idea that the Glazers could be staying on. How do you see this panning out?
Yeah, it's this sort of media back and forth that we're seeing, and a tug of war of who's got the contacts closer to the Glazers, who's got contacts closer to Sheikh Jassim, who's got contacts closest to Radcliffe. It seems like they're all confident of getting what they want. The Glazers, they're flip-flopping between wanting a full sale and £6 billion and, actually a minority investment from the Belinda Carlisle group, or whoever it is. Heaven isn't a place on earth if the Glazers stay on, I can tell you that much. But like you said, it's almost like, it's not like one thing is ruling out the other option. It's like we're just hearing the opinion of all of these different sort of groups back to back, depending on who you're hearing it from, like you said. So I'm sure Sheikh Jassim remains confident. I'm sure Jim Ratcliffe remains confident. And I'm sure the Glazers are still keeping their options open. I think all of these things are happening. But it's just, like you said, it's bordering on. I wouldn't say it's farcical yet, because it still seems sort of within the bounds of a business deal, which is unfortunately what United is at this point. But it's getting to the point where you think, okay, this has been happening for months now. This is, this bidding process is unlike, what I've seen in the past, certainly the way it's been drawn out, especially amongst football clubs. So, yeah, it's sort of taking the piss a little bit. But I'm sure, like I said, they all feel confident that they'll get what they want at the end of this. We just wait and see. But that thing of this sort of unlimited money, or seemingly access to unlimited money, does feel as though it might just be that final factor in the last minute, doesn't it? But we'll see. We'll see.
Loads of people in the comments. Thanks to everyone who's got in the comments to see a lot of the usual suspects. Ross Murphy, Jacoy Trott. Loads of people basically. There's a question here from MU95 Miller. It says, Joe and Jay, what's your feeling on the logic behind the Glazers trying to stay? It's got to be impossible for them to give up a percent in the club and not lose majority, so can they stay? The word and the sort of reports were the idea was this minority stake, and they'd buy out their siblings and then they'd be able to stay. I don't know how realistic that is.
Well, did you see that thing?
Could be something in it, but
Kieran
I don't think
Maguire?
it will happen. I like Kieran. I haven't seen this. What was he saying? Sorry.
Let me try and find this, because it's getting to the point where the whole concept of a share is becoming sort of absolutely ludicrous.
I'll have a look here.
I should be able to find it here. He's talking about Kieran Maguire, obviously a football finance expert who we've had on the channel many times, has been talking about a potential sort of structuring. I've got it here. A way that. So basically, let me just read it. If Kevin, Darcy, Brian, and Eddie Glazer, lesser seen siblings involved in all of this, sell their shares to Carlisle or another investment house, they will convert from B shares, the Class B shares, which are the higher voting rights shares, he said, with 10 votes each, to Class A shares with 1 vote each. Right? That would leave Joel and Avram Glazer with 24.8% of the overall shares, but 75.8% of the votes. Basically, they could still have controlling say over Manchester United, despite owning a absolute minority stake in the club shares, the sort of pool of shares generally. So that is potential, like you said, it's a sort of a merging of those ideas of Avram and Joel. This whole time the reports are they're the most reluctant to sell. They could still sell, let the other family members sell their shares and keep 75%. So that is essentially all of the voting rights to Manchester United, which seems impossible. But when you get into this level of like business loopholes, this, that, and the other stuff, anything is possible, really, isn't it?
Of course it is, and that is really worrying and troubling, the idea that Joel and Avram could be pulling the strings or having, controlling what happens at Manchester United Football Club when we've seen the complete and utter mismanagement that's happened on their watch. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think the response from the fans, if the Glazers do try and pull something like this to stay after the 18 years we've been through, now the hope and the expectation that they are going to sell, I think the response will be unreal. I think it'll be biblical. I think you'll see protests the likes of which you've never seen before, or you've seen before in a Liverpool game. I think that'll become the norm, and I think it'll become untenable for them. People may go, oh, well, you can only protest so much, and people can only have so much anger. I think you'd be surprised at the amount of anger that is out there and just how infinite that could be if the Glazers say, well, actually, we're not going to go. We're going to stay. We're just going to own a quarter of the club, but have 75% of the say in it. Yeah. I think the fans will mobilise like we've not mobilised in a long time.
Yeah, definitely.
Should we talk about last fan standing? Let's see what Adam McCullough had to say. He's been on BetVictor's last fan standing, chatting to some rival fans. Let's check it out.
I've always thought City would win the league, but...
So go on.
The circumstances which they've dropped points in the last 2 games. Like I thought they'd drop points at Liverpool. I thought they'd beat West Ham actually. But the way they've dropped the points from winning positions, it feels more like a battling. But I never thought they'd win the league anyway. I always thought City would come good. They still can win the league, Arsenal, but I've always felt City would eventually turn it around and get back on top of the table. So I don't think it's a battling, but they've had the points in their hands, and that's what will keep them up at night if they don't win it. You know, being 2-0 up at Anfield, stoking the fire a little bit. Liverpool score before half time, and it's a completely different game. And almost the identical thing happened at Upton Park. You even had a missed penalty at 2-1. I thought the manner of dropping those points won't help their mentality.
So that was Adam McCullough chatting with some rival fans as part of BetVictor's Last Fan Standing. There's a link in the description. Go and check them out. What did you make of the Arsenal bottom league? You were just saying there, just while we were watching that it almost feels like it's City's league now. It's done. Yeah. Is that how you feel?
Yeah, it's gone from being like City will probably win this, and then Arsenal have dropped those 4 points in the last 2 games, and it genuinely feels like City. I can almost imagine. I feel like I've got a memory of City lifting the title this season already. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It feels like done. Arsenal are still clear. Arsenal have still got the league in their own hands. If they draw at the Etihad, they can still win the league. And yet, it feels as though it's literally in the trophy cabinet at City, which I don't... Obviously, it's just a testament to how dominant they've been and how flaky Arsenal are looking. But it's just a shame in it because, like, especially when you see what we saw tonight of just... They've got Haaland, haven't they? Who I think in these big games, I don't think if the games last season against Madrid from City are anything like the games in the semi-final coming up, there's no chance that Real Madrid can beat them. I think that we have to see Real Madrid look a lot more defensively sound and a lot more clinical and all this. And even then it might not be enough because of Haaland. And then you take that to the league. Arsenal have to be so perfect now. And I was looking before, and it's almost been billed like whoever wins that game wins the league. There's 7 other games for Arsenal to drop points. They've got to play Chelsea, which I know Chelsea are shit, but you can imagine Haaland winning the league. Lampard winning the league for City. Like it all just feels inevitable, and it's just frustrating, isn't it?
It is frustrating. It does feel inevitable, and I think this has been Arsenal's problem for a long time. They've always been a bit of bottlers, really, haven't they?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Even historically, people going about the glory times of Arsene Wenger. How many times did they retain the title under him? None. Yeah. They got to 1 Champions League final, which they lost. There's always been that element to it. And you look at them in recent years, they act like a load of spoiled brats half the time. And I think a lot of that comes from the manager. We've seen a manager with his histrionics on the touchline and kicking off all the time, even when they were flying. Then you saw, as Maka was referencing there, Granit Xhaka kicking off when the 2-0 up at Anfield with Trent Alexander-Arnold and just sort of getting the Anfield crowd going, which had been silent as usual for 40 minutes. That sort of added the onus to them. Then you've got the game at West Ham where, was it Thomas Partey just starts doing silly things and giving the ball away. And it's like, then... The nerves kick in, and Bukayo Saka misses a penalty, which you'd have put your money on him to score because he's been in such good form this season. Yeah. So I think there's always been a little bit of that about Arsenal, and now we're seeing it come to fruition. And unfortunately, because I'd much rather Arsenal win the league than City personally, I think Arsenal winning the league is a bit of a minor. City making it 3 in a row and 5 out of the last 6 years would just be horrible. But I think I'm with you. I just can't see Arsenal can't see City not winning the league, unfortunately. Make sure you go and check out Last Man Standing in BetVictor. There's a link in the description. Go and let them know Stretford Paddock sent you and get involved in the chat and the comments with those guys and let them know whether you agree with Maka or not. Do you think it's still all up in the air? Joe said there's 7 games left to play. So, who knows what can happen. What's next on the agenda?
Osimhen.
Victor?
Updates, yes.
Yes.
Interesting. These seem to be slightly confused text and titles here. However, I will read off the screen in front of me instead of the screen behind me. Napoli striker Victor Osimhen could be one of the biggest transfers of the summer. He's one of a number of strikers United are looking at, but they will have competition. A potential stumbling block is the price, with some reports suggesting that Napoli would want 100 million plus. Now, this is from Sky, so that's why we're giving it a bit of credence. Even though it's a lot of information we've already heard, Sky still have a little bit of cachet, don't they?
Credit in the bank.
Market. That will no doubt reduce the number of clubs who want to do such a deal. With an ongoing takeover or investment on the cards, it remains to be seen how much the Glazers will invest in the team or whether it will be in the hands of the new owners by the summer. I think it's a bit of a brief knock-along story, that, isn't it? But where, just a reminder, we still want Osimhen, and also who knows who's going to be the owner, so it could go either way. Do you know what I mean? Not much new heard there, is it? But that's what Sky are reporting, so we thought we'd give it a little nudge.
I've got a bone to pick with you anyway over this.
What?
This whole Victor Osimhen, Harry Kane thing. You ganged up on me the other day with your little mate Rio Ferdinand. Because he was sort of... Me and you did a debate in where Osimhen or Kane. Yeah. I went with Osimhen, you went with Kane.
The comments went with Osimhen. So I got ganged up on them by thousands.
And then you went and got Rio to join you when we had him on the channel. And he was all, you know, Harry Kane can win us a league and he can be the next RVP.
Yeah, it's interesting.
You know what I mean?
Last time I checked, Rio Ferdinand, obviously, he's won 5 Premier Leagues, he's won a Champions League. He's played with Wayne Rooney, he's played with Cristiano Ronaldo, he's played with Tevez, he's played with Robin van Persie. He kind of knows what it takes to win trophies, to win leagues, and what sort of strikers might be able to do that. Again, if I just check your CV here, in terms of Premier League titles, you've won a fresh fuck all, Jay.
Well, for starters, he's won 6, not 5.
Well, he's won 5 as well, then, hasn't he?
You've done him a disservice
hang on a sec, Jay.
Right?
So if he's won 6, has he not won 5?
And I will say one thing to you.
I think he's won both, hasn't he?
If Rio's so
he's won 5 and 6.
Insightful, how come he works with Stephen Allen every week?
We need Osimhen.
Anyone who do that,
we need Osimhen.
Anyone who do that is off the red.
Yeah, he's not the man he used to be. Get Osimhen in. Rio's lost it.
No, Rio made a good point, which was your point as well. Like, he felt that Kane could come in and do his job. If we did get Osimhen, and when I say do a job, I mean win us a league. Yeah. Do you still see that? Do you see Osimhen winning us a league? I think there is a world where Victor Osimhen comes in, scores us 28 goals, we win the league. I want more than 28. 28's the limit, innit?
However, I think there is also a world where Victor Osimhen comes in, scores 11 goals, and we win nothing. I don't think there's a world where Kane only scores 11.
I think that's a reasonable thing. Yeah.
You are getting minimum 20 in all competitions from Kane. Minimum. Yeah. That's the worst season he's going to get, unless he's like ACL'd or something. Yeah. You're getting a minimum of 20 goals next season from Harry Kane. Yeah. Minimum. I think you could get half that from Osimhen if things don't go well, it doesn't gel. Martial's on form and he gets put. He's just such a safe bet. I think we need safe bets.
That's a fair
Speaking
point.
Of safe bets.
Get in the comments in the chat. Hit that like button as well. Over 1,500 people watching. Not even. Let's get to 500 likes. Nicky Cadogan makes a good point. He says, leave Jay alone. He's won the same amount of Premier Leagues as Gerrard and Jamie Carragher. So
same amount of leagues as Gerrard and Jamie Carragher put together.
Yeah, put together. So
I didn't think about that.
That is a very good point there. Thank you, my friend. Another player we've been linked with heavily. Because when we get linked, I like it to be heavy.
Me too.
Jeremie Frimpong, Leverkusen's finest. Go on, talk us through this one.
Well, United FL talks with the representatives of Jeremie Frimpong.
Have they though? Have they?
According to Men, as it's quite
Men have told us.
Who's told us that? Men.
Right, okay.
Such a biblical thing to say, isn't it? Who told you this? Men.
Men told us. Men told us that the man that Frimpong will arrive.
Yes. Ten Hag is still intent on recruiting a new right-back, as United could sell up to 3 full-backs this summer. Sources say Ten Hag really likes Frimpong and is keen on the player who is under contract at Leverkusen until 2025. The attack-minded full-back is understood to be calm about his future and told reporters last week that he is focusing on Leverkusen and the next games. Reports suggest Frimpong could cost around 35 million euros.
Do you want
him? I'd like to see what he's got. My only worry is, I know that some of it is like, he's not being asked to do much defending because he's a very, very much an attacking fullback and he's playing, I think Steve was saying, on the right of a back 5 at times, so he's basically a winger. His defensive stats are not even bad, just non-existent.
Yeah, I saw that.
He doesn't defend.
Yeah.
So whether he can but he doesn't have to, or whether he doesn't have to and he can't, or whether he should and he can't, he isn't. And that's my only concern, especially if it's him versus a Foden or this season a Grealish or, a Nunes or a Haaland going out on the left or, these sorts of players that he'll be facing in the Premier League. How does he handle runs in at the back post, crosses to the back post? We saw, I think it was under Solskjaer, there was a period where Wan-Bissaka and Shaw were constantly just getting caught over their shoulders. Do you remember? We saw Malacia do it the other day.
Wan-Bissaka had a particular, they both did, but I remember Wan-Bissaka, it was like every week at one point.
And how does he deal with those sorts of situations? That's my concern. But going forward, he looks absolutely phenomenal. Like, you watch him play, he's got a bit of the, almost, the Patrice Evra where he's like sort of falling over and dribbling at the same time. The ball just sort of sticks between his feet and he'll kind of bundle through a scene of players. He's got that about him. You watch highlights, you watch him play, and no one can get the ball off him. Even if he's on the floor falling over, standing, he just bounces back up. So, yeah, I think it looks really good. And 35 million euros, you're looking at what, 2/3 of a Wan-Bissaka? And for that, I think we should probably go for it, yeah.
Miss Man United says, if you get to 300 likes, can I get my choice of names for the bunny? We've just bought a bunny rabbit.
Have you?
Yeah, so if we get to 300 likes, yes, she can. She can have her name choice. She wants to name it after Vote Veghorst.
What's she going to call it? Donkey?
Hey, nicely done there. Hey.
No, I'm joking. I like him, actually, so sorry for saying that.
I think you're on safe ground, to be honest with you, criticising Vote Veghorst.
Also,
he's not the most popular player.
Isn't donkey such an early 2000s insult for a footballer?
He's a right eel.
Oh, bloody
he's a right donkey.
You never hear anyone get called
No,
a
it's
donkey
gone out of
anymore.
fashion, that, isn't it? He's
Yeah.
a bit of a donkey. He's a right donkey. I remember when was it one of the tabloids had like the back page of calling Tony Adams a donkey?
Yeah.
Like, he ought to be off the pitch or something.
Oof.
And that stuck with him for years.
Did it?
And then I remember when Ian Wright had his show, and Tony Adams had started seeing a model, and it said donkey gets his oats on the front of the paper, and Ian Wright had it on his show, like, talking about it. I'm like, that's your mate.
Heskey was another one that was often donkeyfied, wasn't he? Yeah. I think unfairly.
Yeah. If you'll forgotten even that goal against Germany.
Yeah.
Hey? God,
Do
short
not
memories.
donkify a man like Emil Heskey.
My mate was shouting.
Actually, formerly of this parish, Kieran used to work in the View Cinema.
Yeah.
And he said Emil Heskey would come in and he's getting the popcorn, the nacho cheese, the revels, for his whole family. He'd regularly spend over 100 quid on snacks.
Right.
And that is the sign of a man that, to me, is worth his weight in gold, because he's a family man, and if anything else, respect that, Jay.
I remember my mate, when we played Liverpool for Anthony Martial's debut, he was giving Christian Benteke a load of grief. And he was shouting at him, "You're just a shit Emil Heskey." Well, that's Emil Heskey, really, isn't it? Shouting at him like, hey, Emil Heskey references constantly, and then, if you don't remember, Christian Benteke scored that over a kick. And I was like, nice one, dickhead.
Emil Heskey would have scored an even better one.
Right, let's move on anyway. Let's talk about David Raya.
Yes.
You love him, don't you?
A ray of sunshine. I don't love him. I don't actually love him. I think he's decent. I think he's a good goalkeeper. I think he seems to do more of what Ten Hag would maybe like our goalkeeper to do. I think he's got a bit of a mistake in him. But the reason I've always liked the idea of signing him is because he's got 1 year left on his deal, and you're probably looking at about 15 million quid.
Yeah.
That's what I like. Because it's not like keepers are what they used to be, where you're always getting him on a free or for cheap. Kepa costs 75 million quid. Alisson costs 65 million quid.
You've got to go out and spend the dough.
Like, yeah, they cost, I think even Edison was 35 million euros, something like that. So they're not cheap players anymore, or certainly not the way they used to be. I think Raya could be. And I think he's cheap enough that he's even worth getting him in and it not quite working out. Do you know what I mean? If we came in and he wasn't as good as De Gea, for the price he would probably cost, I think he's a good gamble. I think he's a decent chance.
Your mate who does your podcast with you, the little Geordie fella, he was saying that he's watched him a few times. I don't rate him. He said he thinks he's got one in him.
He has got one in him.
Yeah, he said he's seen him a few times. He looks a bit clumsy, but he's good on the ball with his feet.
Yeah.
And what my worry is, are we going to be swapping someone who's bad on the ball with his feet, but can usually be relied upon to make the saves that you expect him to and make some ones you don't expect him to, for someone who's mint with the ball at his feet and drops, the odd clanger. So I don't want to, I'd love to find a happy medium.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You want both. Yeah. But the thing is working out over a season what earns you more points. Having a goalkeeper that can play out from the back, that allows your team to consistently keep pressure on the opposition for X amount of minutes more per game and per season, than a goalkeeper that can make a few saves that maybe Raya can't, but will occasionally or multiple times per game give the ball away in areas that gets rid of that pressure that he had. It's almost an impossible equation. It's just what the manager wants. So, yeah, I think he's a good player. And he won't cost a lot, so that's the crucial thing for me.
No, I mean, we'll have to wait and see what happens. We don't know. I mean, Erik ten Hag was praising David De Gea over in Sevilla. He was sort of waxing lyrical about him. I don't know if he's just sort of saying that because Erik ten Hag, his default setting is to say wonderful things about all these players, or if he actually does believe David De Gea, because he called him the complete goalkeeper, I think he said, which some people are like, really?
Just on the quote here, he said, I have a year left and I don't know what will happen in the summer. I want to push myself to the highest level, to the Champions League, the Europa, and to win those trophies. I want to experience that, and I'm at that stage in my footballing career. So he's obviously hinting at leaving, isn't he?
I don't know, who does he remind you of?
A little Tevez to him?
A little bit of Tevez, a little bit of Kevin Bacon.
Kevin Bacon?
Yeah.
Is there a Kevin Bacon you went to school with?
The actor.
From the EE adverts?
Yeah, that geezer.
Immediately get a picture of Kevin Bacon on the screen, Callum, because I'm going to scream in a minute. Kevin Bacon? The fuck are you on about? Drag and drop, Callum, we need this immediately. Kevin Bacon?
Yeah, like he's got like the nose of Kevin Bacon. Don't you think? Right.
How long are we talking, Callum?
Come on, people, get involved in the comments and let me know whether you can see the Kevin Bacon. He looks like a bit like a mashup between Kevin Bacon and Ben Affleck. That's what happens if you cross.
I don't think you've seen those people before.
I think he looks like Kevin Bacon, and I won't have anyone tell me why.
Have you just read about Kevin Bacon?
Someone, well, Liam Shakespeare says, Jay back on the sniff. No, I'm not back on the sniff. I think it's a fair comparison. He reminds me of, there.
Jay,
it's like twins. That is twins. Can you not see? Can you not see?
That is psychotic. What you've just said.
Which one is that? That's David Raya, isn't it? That's Kevin Bacon. Yeah. That's. I mean, it's uncanny. Don't you think? Isn't it weird that I would like the look? Anyway.
Was that like a little J man?
No, it wasn't. I genuinely thought.
We need, how many stories are left? Because we need to wrap up soon and get Jay in some cotton wool immediately. Put one of those silver blankets around him like he's barely finished a marathon.
Right.
Some players. Yeah, you have a sit down. I'll read through
medical breakdown.
Some players are back in training.
Right. Don't need to give me dirty looks, just having a difference of opinion.
If Jay's not on the show tomorrow, it's because he's not very well.
They're coming to take me away.
Back in training, Rashford, Shaw and Sabitzer are all back in training this morning. Rashford has missed United's last 2 games. That doesn't seem a lot, like he might already be back soon. It felt like he's missed more than 2 games, didn't it? And his return will be a welcome boost ahead of a tricky game away to Sevilla. Shaw has been sidelined since coming off in the 37th minute against Brentford earlier this month. Scott McTominay, Alejandro Garnacho and Rafael Varane remain unavailable, while Alessandro Martinez and Donny van der Beek are out for the season.
I'm quite like the layout here. It's like
me too.
It's like a sonnet. Rashford back already. Wow. Yeah. Didn't see that one coming.
No.
Good news. Hopefully we don't rush him back and he is fit enough if he is going to feature. We're not doing like what we did against Wolves, but anyway, a broken back and we threw him in anyway.
Yeah.
Because we've got the best out of Rashford this season and we don't want to screw it up. I'd rather Rashford miss the Sevilla game, even if we risk going out against him, than rush him back and he misses the back end of the season.
Me too.
Like he's too valuable to us. And whilst it's great that Martial's back in the team and doing well, Marcus Rashford has carried his team this season in terms of goals, and we can't afford to lose him for anything remotely long term. Let's go on to, this is my favourite story today.
Yes, me too.
The Jimmy Murphy statue. Joseph, talk us through it.
Yeah, Jimmy Murphy played a crucial role as coach and later assistant manager to Sir Matt Busby. A statue of Jimmy Murphy will be unveiled outside the Stretford end on Wednesday, the 3rd of May. 65 years to the day after he led the club to the FA Cup final at Wembley. The event, which takes place 2 weeks today at the Theatre of Dreams, is open to fans and the public to attend from 4:30 British summer time, with the official unveiling ceremony taking place between 5 and 5:30. It's not the most picturesque piece of land, is it? Just off the back of the Stretford end there, but
no,
it's a fitting place for, like you said, for a long time. One of the most iconic, important iconic and important men in the history of Man United.
Yeah, I mean, after the Munich air disaster, Jimmy Murphy was away with Wales, so he didn't fly to Munich, thank God, or from Munich. so he wasn't involved in the crash. It was left for him to sort of rally around while Sir Matt Busby was in hospital, and we lost, I think it was 8 players in total. And he got on the phone. A lot of the board was saying we can't fulfil our fixtures, we're going to have to drop out of the league, or, there's even question marks whether Manchester United as a club could continue. It seems crazy to imagine now. And Jimmy Murphy was having none of it. And if you ever go to the training ground, there's a Jimmy Murphy building. There's a sort of, almost like a shrine to him, if I'm being honest, where it says, he kept the red flag flying high. And Jimmy Murphy, as you said, Joe, and rightly so, is as important as anyone. Busby, Fergie, the founders of the club, is as important as all of them guys, because he was literally like, we are going to continue, we are going to rise like a phoenix from the flames. He got on the phone, he got players in, he promoted young players, he did everything he could, not only kept us going, got us to an FA Cup final that year as well, where incidentally we were robbed by some horrible decisions against Bolton, I think it was. So yeah, it's great to see him immortalised in this way, and it's annoyed me a little bit that we're in 2023, because to be honest with you, when the statue of Busby went up, a statue of Murphy should have gone up really, but let's not quibble over the fact that something positive is happening, and we'll slag off Manchester United Football Club when they get things wrong, but they deserve credit for getting this one right. Right, I'm going to wrap it up there, my friend. Where can people find you?
Joe Smith 93 on Instagram and Twitter, and on the watch along tomorrow with you.
It's me and thee, and possibly
3.
Adam McCullough. So thanks to BetVictor and Last Man Standing sponsoring the channel, the podcast. Go and check them out. There's a link in the description. Miss Man United, please know we got to 300 likes. She gets to name the bunny.
What would you have wanted to call it? Surely not one of those names you were writing on the wall outside.
No, I don't know. Absolutely not. You can't say that in front of your kids, can you?
No.
That's just wrong.
Diabolical. Especially after what they did. You know what I mean? on that scale as well. I don't know why you like them so much.
Listen, we're still the only team to win the treble. Luke024 says, has Jay bagged a watch sponsorship? No, but I am open to suggestions if anyone does want to sponsor us. Only costs 30 quid this. It's not like it's an expensive timepiece. It's like, it was on sale for mate Samuel. Anyway, that's been Joe. I've been Jay. This has been Paddock Live. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.